Begin the Kitchener stitch graft. You're going to start by putting your provisional cast on back onto the needles. Now I like to do this on a needle 1 to 2 sizes smaller than the needle that I used to knit the piece. And it's really easy. You just put your needle in the loop and pull 1 stitch off. I like to put my needle in the loop first, especially when working with Mosaic, because this just gives you a really easy guide where you're going, and you don't have to worry about losing it or anything like that. So 1 stitch on, pull the provisional cast off, 1 stitch on, pull the provisional cast off. And I'm going to keep doing that, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, now I've got all that provisional cast on here on these spare needles. It is very important that the provisional cast on edge goes in the back. This is what will make sure that each of those stitches actually pinch up and line together and align the way that they're supposed to, and your working edge should go in the front. Now you'll want to cut the color with which you are using your Kitchener, in this case the CC, to 4 times the circumference of the cowl. And if you are doing the duplicate stitch to make it truly invisible, you'll want to cut your MC, in this case, to 2.5 times the length. Any other ends, if you're not doing the duplicate stitch or these ends here on the cast on, you'll want to go ahead and have those woven in. This will make your life so much easier. And then you'll want to have an interlocking stitch marker here on the first stitch of the front and back needle. You'll be using these instead of doing the setup stitches, because then at the end you will put these back on needles and complete that whole sequence. Now, what you need to remember to do the Kitchener stitch, it comes in 4 steps, 2 on the front needle and 2 on the back needle. For the front, it's knit off, purl. And you want to tug that up, especially that first one, nice and tight so that you don't get a gap at the join. And then for the back, purl, off, knit. Careful not to get it caught over your needles. Okay, so we'll do that again. Remember, it is knit, off, purl, purl, off, knit. What you're doing as you are working the Kitchener stitch is you are basically creating a knit stitch through your sewing. Knit, off, purl, purl, off, knit. And you're just going to keep doing this around. Careful not to do it too loose or too tight. If you do it too loose, you can just kind of pull up those loops one by one to work out any extra yarn and have it nice and tight. But you also don't want to do it too tight, because you can cause the rest of your stitches to pucker. Knit, off, purl. Purl, off, knit. It gets a little easier as you get away from those initial stitches, because then you're not having to contend with your stitch markers, with your other needles. You can also switch it to a longer needle so that this will be hanging kind of way out of the way, like with this one, which I put on a 24 inch instead of on my 16 inches. That can also make it a little bit easier. And then purl, off, knit. You're just going to keep going all the way around. creating these nice knit stitches that are completely the same and invisible. And I'm going to go ahead around and then I'll show you how to join when we get to the very end and how to do that duplicate. Okay, so I got to the very last bit and of course my needles fell out as they want to do. I've gone ahead and pulled this one outside just because that's going to make it a little bit easier. And then we're going to trace that final stitch. I'll start up top, go in behind, and do the same on the bottom. It's going to be easier to pull these out just so they're completely out of the way. So then you just kind of go in behind and voila, it's completely invisible. You will want to try to catch the purl bumps of a few of the stitches on the back side, and then you can just kind of let it dangle inside because it's a tube and you won't see it. Now, I want to show you how to make it completely invisible, because as you see, there's no difference in the stitching like on top or on bottom of this line. However, there is a difference in the pattern. So here you've got this little knot, and down here you don't. You're missing about 4 stitches. So I'm going to show you how to duplicate those stitches all the way around so that it is completely invisible. So get it threaded on your needle, and I'm going to start back here. You're going to go in where that next stitch would be. You're going to go through the center of the stitch and then loop around both legs of the stitch that you want to connect to. And you will go down in through the same center. Now you're going to come up through, in this case it's 2 stitches later, where we're making our next duplicate stitch. And around both legs and through the center. Now for this one, because it's a very long run before where you want to go in next, I'm going to just catch the purl bump of 1 or 2 of these stitches as I am working my way to the next place where I want to make this duplicate stitch, which is way over here. So the trick is to pull it through and make sure that you've got enough room for that leg, and just to give it kind of a stretch to make sure that there's not going to be any puckering. So these are the first 2 duplicate stitches here, and then we're going to do it, I'll show you how to do it for one more. We've come up through the center where we're making this first duplicate stitch, around both legs, and in through the same place. In the center, out the center of the next place where you are creating this stitch. You'll be able to look in the chart and see where that is. Wrap around both legs on the stitch above, and go in through the center of the same stitch, out through the center of the next stitch where you're creating that duplicate stitch, around both legs, out through the center, or back into the center of the next stitch and into the center of the stitch below. Then you are going to go around both legs and into the next stitch. Now I'm just gonna pull it out here. This is not where my next stitch is, but just to be able to show you. So here's where you've created this duplicate stitch, and it evens out that pattern right below so that it's going to be truly invisible. You're not going to be able to see where you began or ended your cowl, and you'll be able to just toss it on any which way and never have to worry about if the back is in the back or where it is. And this is my favorite method for making a mosaic cowl. So I hope you enjoy. So let me ask, can you tell where I joined it? One thing that you want to definitely be sure of is it's really easy to lose a stitch or two as you are putting it back on the needles. So be extra careful of that. Double check to make sure that you are aligning those first few stitches in. I had to restart a couple times just to make sure that everything was aligned the way it was supposed to be. But once you do, it's totally worth it. And I am so excited to share this with you.